We are rolling now. Everything you say can and will be used against you.
We're recording, so I'm gonna say exactly what I would say even if we weren't recording.
You want to talk some shit? I think there's some people on their feed that loves to talk some shit.
Hello and welcome to Expected Own Goals, More Than Real edition. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
And I am Evan Davis. We are so excited to be doing what is our big wrap-up episode now that we are at the long, probably much awaited by a lot of players, break in the season. We are doing something kind of different. We're going to be doing what we're tentatively titling the Are They Real draft. You're looking at the table, you might look at the goal difference leaderboard. Maybe you're even savvy around the XG information that pops around the internet. And you're thinking, yeah, this team's table position feels right, or this team's table position feels totally wrong. Well, we're now at a point where a lot of that underlying data is a little bit stickier. It means something. It maybe has a little bit more predictive power than it did earlier in the year. So we thought this is the perfect time to take stock and battle it out over which teams are frauds and which teams are legit. Joining us today, two of our absolute favorite people. This first person, you know her as the voice of Stanford women's soccer, as well as play-by-play on the international feed of NWSL matches, and the co-host of the great Women's Soccer Show podcast. And maybe most importantly, was our roommate for about 36 hours in San Jose back in November, Sara Ach. Hi, Sara.
Hi. So happy to be here. Excited to be doing this. Thanks for having me.
Lovely to see you. And Eric, I know that you've been having laptop troubles. Maybe there's some data problem that was causing a lot of those issues, some statistical numerical sickness. Well, I got good news for you, my friend. The doctor is in.
I was wondering where you were going with that. Okay.
Can you imagine that I've been waiting 2 years to say that? Longtime listeners might recall our very good buddy occupying the third chair in the good ship XOG, and she's making her triumphant return to the show. We are beyond thrilled. The one and only Dr. Arianna Cascone. Hi, Doc.
Hello. Thanks for leading into the doctor thing, but a PhD is kind of like a fake doctor. I don't know. We could do the math. Like, if you're sick because of math, I'll help you with that. But
yeah, if somebody shouts out for you on an airplane because someone's collapsed, they're going to be very disappointed.
I'm underneath my seat at that point. I've never heard the word doctor before in my life.
Physician, heal thyself. I think this is the perfect forum for your skills.
I love that we have Arianna here today because she's been writing what have become very contentious ESPN power rankings that are getting regularly torched by the numbskulls on Reddit. Today, unencumbered by their nonsense, she gets to hack it out with some other people. I'm very excited for this.
I'm excited too. We'll see what everyone has to say about my takes. Probably not good things, but I'm going to do it anyway.
If you're getting torched on Reddit, you're doing something right. That's my
All
theory.
press is good press. That's what I've heard.
We are loathed on Reddit, my friend. We're all keeping good company here. All right. We're doing this draft, the Are They Real draft. We got 4 categories. Everybody's got 4 picks. They can only pick one team for each category. But that might not mean that everybody agrees which team belongs in which category, and this is where the fun comes in. We got 4 categories. Legit contenders, teams that you think the points on the board represent exactly who they are, and they are going to be in the Shield top 4 playoff hunt by the end of this season. We've also got less than meets the eye, teams who are way out over their skis and whose performances aren't matching the results on the board at all. We've also got the bounces will come, teams who maybe have dropped some points, lost some games they should have won, and probably deserve to see some positive regression in the back end of the season. Finally, we've got we are who they thought they were, teams who are absolute dog shit, both on results and on performances. So we've got our draft order. We've got a snake draft structure in place. I used a random number generator to set up said draft order. I will be picking first, followed by Eric, then Doc, and then Sara will be on the turn in 4th and 5th position. So here we go. I am going to take, for my first pick, in legit contenders, the Washington Spirit.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably as easy a layup as we're going to have all day, barring 1 or 2 other clubs.
Well, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, that was, yeah.
They're top 4 on points per game. They are 1st or 2nd on whatever XG differential leaderboard you want to look at. They are loaded with stars. They are loaded with depth. They are the team probably best equipped to handle the longest regular season in women's soccer history. I feel very good about them being able to continue the strong performances that they've offered in the first third of the season. Anybody want to challenge me on that?
I mean, they're good. What do you want to say? That, and particularly when they're fully healthy, they're really good, and they're deep, and they've got a lot of really dynamic attacking talent. And when they get Ashley Hatch back, that'll be another element to the team. As somebody put it yesterday, I don't know how they're doing it with whatever existing cap stuff happens, because they just are chock full of talent. What do you think is the weakest aspect of their best 11? Where could they legitimately improve at this point?
Is it their goalkeeping?
Yeah, some goalkeeping with Aubrey Kingsbury out for the season.
That feels like low-hanging fruit.
It's low-hanging fruit, but it's kind of the right low-hanging fruit, I think, especially if you watch all their games back. Like, I'm the last person that will hang anything on a goalkeeper because, as the cliche says, it has to go through 10 people before it gets to the goalkeeper. But Sadie McLeaver has been incredible at moments and has had a couple of fumbles that have certainly cost Washington a couple of points. But I think this is a team that, like, if you take every single team in the NWSL and you take them at their absolute best, Washington has the highest ceiling. It makes sense that we're struggling to find anything kind of wrong with them.
Well, actually, what about if Trinity Rodman doesn't stay healthy? Like, knock on all the wood that exists in the world.
I'm so glad you asked, because Claudia Martinez seems to be doing just fine. You know, Gift Monday hasn't been getting starting minutes, you know? Like, that's the crazy part. It's not just that they have the highest ceiling, they also might have the highest floor, which is the other crazy thing. Like, they've covered so many bases that, like, their exposure to risk is actually kind of low for a team that plays at such a high level. That's why we've been saying probably for 2 years now that, like, they're the best run team in the NWSL from an on-field perspective. Honestly, from an off-field perspective in a lot of ways too.
I know they came out of the gates pretty slow, but all things considered, as they have warmed up, even Sandy McIver's shot stopping has been very, very good this year. Statistically, I agree with you. She's had a couple of pretty shocking moments, and we're not going to count what happened in Mexico against her in the W Champions Cup because we don't have that data. That said, it's ball progression in the midfield, which they've mostly sorted out, and how much you really trust what they have in goal. Otherwise, it's a team that I feel like could pretty much lose any of their attacking pieces and still be good. Like, even if you lose Trinity Rodman, you still have Rose Kouassi, who's one of the most dangerous wide attackers in the league and therefore in the world. Evan, this was low-hanging fruit. You took it, and I thought it was quite good.
So what's your pick there, big boy?
Yeah, I should go on and pick. We are who we thought they were. With my first pick, and I have to take no one other than the Chicago Red Stars, who are exactly who we thought they were. They are the worst team in the league, and I don't think it's that close. And I don't know how they dig themselves out of this hole, even if Mal Swanson puts on a superhero performance in the next 2/3 of the season. The Chicago Stars are just a really, really tough watch. And a lot of that is they just don't have many players. They're at such a talent disadvantage across the board. So if the Spirit are deep everywhere, the Chicago Stars are shallow absolutely everywhere, other than probably Mal Swanson and maybe in goal with Katie Atkinson.
And would you believe that as bad as they are, they've still been lucky this year? Based on what their goal differential looks like relative to their underlying data? Let that sink in for a second.
That's crazy. I mean, what do you guys think?
Now that these two are off of the list, I think we're all going to have a little bit more to say to contend with anything. But it's like you said, even if Mal Swanson goes on a tear, they're probably still going to lose a lot of games because they don't really have a defense. I guess the only argument I could maybe make is that they have a lot of young talent on the bench. I was just talking about Elise Evans the other day. And I know I sound like a homer because she's Stanford, but what are we doing with Elise Evans on the bench? This is a player that started every single game in her whole Stanford career, except for the ones that she didn't play in because she was captaining the youth U.S. women's national team in Colombia in the U23 World Cup. Like, why is she on the bench? And obviously points to Chicago and how literally top to bottom this organization needs kind of like a full overhaul because it's just not run correctly and it's not run well. And for Elise Evans' sake, I want her out of Chicago. But what happens if maybe we put all of this young talent on the field, change it up, maybe something magical happens? I don't believe this. I'm just trying to make the case for something.
They made the correct first step in firing Richard Foyts. So they are now in the hunt for a new GM. One might argue they didn't have a GM in the first place based on the way he acted over the last couple of seasons. Doc, you're up.
Okay, so I want to go with less than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go with the Portland Thorns.
Ooh, I actually agree. I know I'm supposed to contend with this, but I totally agree. I had them in there as well, but I want to hear why you put them there.
So I put them there because everyone thought they were going to be really amazing, and they are able to win somehow a lot of times or steal points, right? We saw that over the weekend against Utah. But for me, in the last game, Utah was clearly the better side. Like, you knew what Utah was trying to do. At times, it was like Portland is just trying not to let Utah score. But they are not really sure what's going on in the other direction. And we talk a lot about Olivia Moultrie, as we should be talking about her, because I think she's maybe one of the best players in the league. Sophia Wilson, like, they have the star power, but for some reason, it's just not coming together. And I can't exactly put my finger on why.
I have a letter.
I think I can,
It's the letter D. I actually like, what's so fascinating about this team is I think they're one of the rare teams in this league that could have fit in any of these 4 categories. Like, I think that they are an outside legit contender. I think they are definitely less than meets the eye. I also think the bounces will come as more of their offense returns. And I think they are who we thought they were, because the defense is bad. We kind of knew that going into this year, that they would have a lot of problems, particularly like in the defensive midfield center back pairing. And like, they've demonstrated that. And bar some weird statistical outliers, like not conceding at home despite giving up lots of good chances, like, they're one of those teams that you can pull fun facts about, but that like the structure is really weak. So this is a tough one. Like, I kind of thought be trolly and pick them as a legit contender, because like, you're kind of a legit contender if you make the playoffs and have Soph Wilson. But yeah, this is the right category for me too. They are less than meets the eye.
Yeah, Doc went Occam's razor here, and I think she was right to do it. There has not been a luckier team all year based on the underlying performances. They are playing so far above their heads, the results would tell us. I don't know if they necessarily can't defend to save their life. They just can't defend consistently. Robert Villahamn hasn't been able to like settle on a starting center back pairing. Cassandra Boguera, while looking actually pretty respectable in the early part of the year, now looks like a player who has spent most of her career in Norway. At the same time, American Soccer Analysis, their projection model right now pegs Portland to be in a dead heat for the Shield with Kansas City. There are methodological holes that you can poke, mostly because that projection model is driven by individual performances, and it's weighted really heavily toward attackers because it's easier for attackers to separate themselves from the pack better than midfielders or defenders can. And so like, when you have Sophia Wilson playing for you and you have Pietri Torden and Raylan Turner and also Morgan Weaver and Kaya Hanks coming back, like, the model's going to really like that. And so, weirdly enough, Eric is kind of on the money that, like, you could have placed them in any of these 4 spots. They're probably going to the playoffs. That'll probably be a deserved thing. And yet, at the same time, they are nowhere near as quality as their table position would suggest. Pride comes before the fall, none more so than for the loudest and most vociferous fan base in the league.
I will say, this is the category I would have put Portland in, but I think you all are being a little too harsh on the Portland Thorns.
Bring it.
I'll say
on the defense in particular, or the whole team?
The whole team in particular. I'll totally agree on the defensive side for sure. I will say they're not who I thought they were. I thought that they were going to be at the absolute bottom of the table, but it sounds like you all had better predictions than I did.
Oh.
But what are you going to say about a team that hires a head coach a week before the season starts? You know, Listen, this is a team, and I completely agree with everything you've said about the defense. If you slot Sam Coffey into this team, I don't think what's just been said applies. I think everybody's putting them in fully legit contender. And I say that to say they have very specific missing pieces. And I was just talking to Fook Win about this, who covers the Portland Thorns through and through. And we both agreed that if you bring in a number 6 that can help you break a high press, because this team cannot break a high press to save their life. And I'd argue maybe that's even more important for them than bringing in a center back. You bring in a 6 that can help them break a high press. And it's kind of all to play for the Portland Thorns. Like, this is a league in the NWSL that mostly for the past 3 years, the team with the best defense has generally speaking won the Shield, whether it's like statistically the number 1 defense. But defense does win championships. However, in the regular season, you're going to get into a lot of shootouts. And this is a team that can win a shootout because of how many goal scorers they have. And then, as you said, it's all to play for in the playoffs if you have Soph Wilson. So I think Portland are a lot closer than a lot of people think that they are. Yes, their statistics maybe indicate that they've been the luckiest side in the world, and maybe they have been. And you bring in one piece, and I think that they could be off to the races.
I love this point so much because I think that we've just talked about two teams that are like completely on the opposite ends of the spectrum. If you offered me the job of GM of any team in the league to like fix and have the easiest fast improvement, it's the Portland Thorns. No question.
100%, yeah.
100%. And like it's like one, maybe two players, and maybe you add a depth piece somewhere in the midfield as well. Whereas like Richard foisted by his own petard, like literally there's nothing that you could do to fix Chicago in a single season. Like it is a multi-year project after a 3-year project that failed. Portland are less than meets the eye, but they could suddenly be overnight like that, a legit contender with like one, maybe two pieces. And pieces they probably can afford.
Does anyone have any ideas about who the 6 could be?
I don't really have a sense of like what kind of money the Bethals want to spend. You know, like
Yeah,
this past winter, they didn't really go out and plug holes the way that they needed, namely letting Sam Coffey go and not replacing her with someone of equivalent talent. So who's available and what kind of money they're going to be willing to drop on a player like that, I think, is, as Sarah said, the thing hanging over their heads more than anything else. Because, yeah, they got center backs. They're lousy with center backs. They just don't trust any of them. And a lot of those defensive holes can be papered over by the fact that Mackenzie Arnold is a great shot stopper and has been a great shot stopper this year. So it really is just trying to figure out who's going to partner with Jesse Fleming. And if you want to pony up, you can go get somebody. But, like, are you saving your powder to try and make a run at Sophia Wilson when she hits free agency and you're worried about your cap hit? Maybe. Are you kind of cap tied right now because activating her player option was so expensive? But you're right. This is the team with the clearest fix. No question. All right. Sarah, you're up.
I'll fill in our last category. I will do the bounces will come.
Okay.
I'm gonna put Denver in there.
Denver Summit.
Interesting.
Denver Summit. So teams that maybe lag behind their current performances. I think Denver Summit's record doesn't reflect how close they've been in certain games. And this is a team that I think kind of similarly to Portland, they're only missing a couple of pieces. They found their true number 9 in Melissa Kussler, who has been outstanding. She just got a call up to the German women's national team in this most recent international break. So well deserved. They've got experience. Janine Sonis is playing the best I've ever seen her play. This is a team that's also getting Lindsay Heaps back come the start of July. And a lot of people would point to their center midfield as maybe a place that they could get stronger. Well, guess what? They're about to get a lot stronger there. I think Denver are a true middle of the table team. You slot Lindsay Heaps into a true middle of the table team, and I think that they can certainly meet their goal of contending for a top 8 spot. And once again, in the playoffs, it's all to go for. But they have been very true to the style that they've wanted to play. And I think that their results have sometimes wavered and sometimes kind of shown how good they can be. You look at the Boston game, and that's probably the worst I've ever seen them play. But you look at a game like when they beat Houston 4-1. You look at even their loss to San Diego Wave. This is a team that gets better every single week. It's really impressive for an inaugural team to have the identity that they have, to have the identity off the field, on the field. And when you see a team grow week to week, it's only a matter of time before results start to fall their way. By the way, my last point, they've had the most away games of any team in this first third of the season. They will be home so much in this second 2/3 of the season, which I think will be huge for them.
Yeah, they got 12 home games, and that is really, I think, the story of where Denver sits right now, because it's insane to play 75% of your schedule on the road in the first chunk of a season. That's just ridiculous. And so if you adjust for home away effects, strength of schedule effects, game state, all that good stuff, and you look at their XG, like, they have absolutely been underperforming. They have been unlucky. But I had a really tough time in my mock board where I was going to place them if they fell to me, because yes, their results maybe aren't matching the performances right now, especially when you consider the context. But remember that they have 2 games in hand, and so the raw points total is a little low. If you look at like their per game points number, they're getting results like a playoff team would need to at this point. Are they, chasing a home playoff game in the quarterfinals? Well, no, but like they're hovering around 8th place, 9th place on results and on performances. That feels somewhat legit to me. And as you say, their schedule is about to get a hell of a lot easier.
Can I also just say that statistically, across the history of North American professional sports, no city provides a greater home field advantage than Denver. And you're going and playing the most athletic sport. All of these teams are going to come into Denver and be sucking wind. I think they're kind of like bang exactly who we thought they were, maybe slightly better than that. I also think that Abby Smith is overperforming as a shot stopper in a way that has to come back down to earth and probably will.
Does it?
I mean, I suppose it
Well, so
doesn't.
this is what I wanted to say. I think that will happen. Regression to the mean. I also think Janine Sonis is not going to keep up this superpower, put the team on her back performance that she's been putting on. So
But
I
will
don't.
she have to? Because Lindsay Heaps will be coming back.
Well, Sarah, I don't know if you know where XOG tends to stand on 2026 Lindsay Heaps.
I would love to talk about this because I've had many iterations of how I feel about Lindsay Heaps. I don't know if I'll take you through the whole journey of it, but I think I've felt every way you can feel about a player about Lindsay Heaps.
Good way to put it. Yeah.
And
That's fair.
in watching the most recent Champions League, not just the final, I feel like I watched every single round of the most recent Women's Champions League. I've been thoroughly impressed with what she's been able to add to Lyon, and I do see her as one of the best number 8s in the world. I don't really think her style necessarily fits in with a lot of NWSL systems. Why that might be different in terms of Denver is because Nick Cushing has very clearly structured this team around knowing he's going to get Lindsay Heaps back, and he will play a style that is very conducive to making sure Lindsay Heaps does shine in the number 8. I think when she's in a system like Lyon, she can shine in the ways that she's best. She is box to box. I don't think she's great at a 10. I'm going to say that here. I think her best position is an 8.
We all agree.
I think her second best position is the 6, but Nick Cushing has also said she's going to play the 6 or she's going to play the 8. She's not going to be in the 10. So I think she will shine in Denver. I think she's great box to box. I think she's great in the box. So if you can get some crosses in and she can get on the end of them, I think she shines there. And that's all kind of like NWSL style of play. So
Yeah, and Denver, maybe more than any team right now, is built entirely around wide attacking and keeping the ball away from the middle of the park. And so you might hide some of the reduced mobility, lack of progressive incision that Heaps might experience once she's no longer playing the likes of Nantes or even a team that theoretically is good but kind of isn't anymore, Wolfsburg, et cetera, and so forth. Doc, I'm curious what you have thought of Denver up to this point.
I'm really high on Denver, and again, this is another thing. I don't really know why. I think I've been really impressed with the way the club has handled things, and maybe it's because it's like night and day compared to Boston, where Boston is hard to watch and everything else off the field has been questionable, and then Denver's like, oh my gosh, let's break a record. The crowd looks amazing. It's so much fun. I have heard from so many people how awesome the experience is that I'm like, yeah, I want Denver to be good. So I think I'm biased, but they're kind of right in the middle of when you think of like if they're overperforming their points, like points versus X points, they're right in the middle of the pack. They're in the middle of the pack on X points also. So it's hard to say, are they just like league average? Are they going to squeak into the playoffs? I can see that. Half the league makes the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right.
you say that like it's an easy thing to do. I think it's still hard to make the playoffs.
It's still hard. It's still hard, but half the league makes the playoffs, and Chicago's not really a contender. So really, it's like 8 out of 15.
When you adjust for the strength of their schedule and home away effects and game state and all that good stuff, their XG differential right now is 4th place. I think Denver's going to pick up a lot of points here.
Yeah.
All right, Ash.
All right. In round 2, I'm going to start us off with a legit contender. It's the Utah Royals.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go here. Now
For me-
we're getting spicy.
For me, the only 2 legit contenders in this entire league are Washington Spirit and Utah Royals. And Utah, I mean, we talked about altitude. Let's use that as a transition point. We don't talk about the home field advantages that Utah has. They also play at altitude. So unless they're playing Denver, they also have a home field advantage in terms of altitude. But this is a team that, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, obviously everybody had pretty much written off. Yes, they had a great end to their season last year. Yes, they finished with, I think it was the second most points in the NWSL in the back half of the season. But I still don't think anybody took them seriously. I certainly didn't. But I think what Juni Koenraerts has built is here to stay, to be totally honest with you. And it's a team that maybe started weak, but started weaker than they actually are because they had a lot of players out on a small injury, or they had a lot of players out on international duty, specifically some Japanese internationals who are playing in the Asia Women's Cup, who have added, of course, so much to this team. I mean, you look at Mina Tanaka and what she can do, and it's pretty impeccable. I think she should be at least in a conversation for most valuable player for this year for the NWSL. I know this is preemptive, but I'll say it anyways. It's hard to find a weak spot, similar to how we were talking about Washington Spirit. It's just kind of difficult to find a weak spot for Utah, and I think that when you can control the flow of games, you can kind of do anything. And Utah's high press is one of the best I've seen, I think, in a long time. And through that, they're able to control any game that they're really a part of. And I'm high on them. I think that they're going to just continue to grow.
I will say this. If you gave me a second GM job to take over, Utah is another one that I think, because you probably have infinite cap space to play with, like Utah is a team that could absolutely add this summer and would have the room to do so. And I think can now credibly pitch their project, given the way that they are playing. They're not going to be able to necessarily go out and like compete at the upper ends of the market, but if they're smart, they can buy well. I don't know how much they can do that. That said, they've been a real delight and a surprise, and I don't know if I would have stuck them. I was going to run away from the Utah Royals for my own picking for this, but I think that there's no reason that if everyone stays healthy and if Mandy McGlynn even regresses a little bit but remains one of the best shot stoppers in the league, I can't believe we're here and saying this, but I don't hate this. I don't know if there's a category that, like, I don't think they are less than meets the eye. I don't think the bounces will come because the bounces have sort of been there, and they are definitely not who we thought they were. So by default, I kind of agree with this categorization.
Yeah, they're the second luckiest team. If we think about points minus X points. I don't know. Are they legit? I'm not convinced, but I think there have been some really nice individual performances. But at times, I don't know. I'm just not convinced, I guess.
There are a couple of things that are sort of driving Utah's engine right now. One of them is that they're pretty excellent on set pieces, specifically in generating XG from set pieces. They get set pieces and they create good opportunities from set pieces. And that's a big, big help when you're sometimes, maybe even often, at a talent deficit. I mean, we've seen this the last couple of years on the men's side of the game, right? Like, if you can make yourself a set-piece machine, then you can overperform. And you throw in a world-class shot stopper like Mandy McGlynn, or even Mia Justice, who, like, looked also pretty good between the sticks at the earliest part of the year when McGlynn was injured. That can carry you a pretty long way. Maybe try and split the difference, similar to my feelings on Denver. The Utah Royals are on pace to make the playoffs. They are playing well enough to be a playoff team. And nobody thought that on March 12th of this year. Nobody. Not even the most diehard of Utah Royals fans. That's an extraordinary thing, truly. This isn't luck that they are in a playoff spot. This isn't them getting the bounces. This isn't some other team collapsing. This isn't an expanded field. They deserve to be in that conversation. But when you start stripping some of the noise out, they look a little bit more mid-table than they do Shield contenders, the way that their points are suggesting right now. We've seen Kiana Palacios flash some quality. Obviously, Mina Tanaka has flashed a lot of quality. Mina Tanaka also ain't a spring chicken, nor is Chloe Lacasse. And there is going to be a real requirement of Kelly Cousins and the ownership to spend in order to keep this going. Because I don't think that they are built to keep doing this for a 30-game season. And we know the true legacy of the Utah Royals is having a good half season and having a bad half season. We're just used to the bad half season coming first, whereas maybe it's flipped this year. So I think that they are due to slide a fair bit in the autumn. Do I think that they're going to slide completely out of the playoff spots? No. They've just got too many points in the bank at this point.
Do you have the strength of schedule ranking for Utah? I'm just asking because I'm looking at this list. So after their slow start to the season, loss, draw, it was, these are all wins. Boston, Chicago, Seattle, Angel City, Houston. And then they drew Bay. And I don't know that I would say that grouping of teams is like powerhouse NWSL.
That's it. You do have to beat these teams. Like, you do need to turn those into wins.
Well, it's not an accident, especially this year, the way that the schedule is playing with the shape of a team's results distribution is significant because of this fucking men's World Cup break that we're dealing with, and whatever genius in the league office decided to book a bunch of teams playing each other twice on the same half of the season bracket. You know? So, like, so many teams have already played each other twice, and we're not even at the halfway point. That means that there's going to be a fair amount of schedule imbalance pretty much until the middle of September. And some teams can take advantage of that. I think Utah is one of those teams. I mean, they got to play Gotham, Orlando, North Carolina, Washington, in Portland in 5 of their first 6 games back from the break. And then Denver on top of that, San Diego 2 weeks after Denver. Your mileage may vary on the qualities of each of those opponents, but that is a tougher run than what they have had to deal with, I think, up to this point.
It's interesting you say this, Evan, because I feel like there's two ways to look at that, and then I guess I'll make the larger point, which is obviously that'll be the big test. We will know who Utah is after, probably the first month, maybe the first 5 weeks back in July. Yeah. It's interesting you say you think they're going to slide, because I think that Jimmy Coonratz has structured this around knowing maybe the strength of schedule, because he's come out and just outright said, we want to maximize points before the break. He is basically saying, like, to hell with rest. You can rest in June. Let's get as many points before break as we possibly can. And then we will set ourselves up for potentially missing out on some points in the latter half of the season. So will they finish in the top one, in the top two? Maybe not.
No.
Are they a legit contender in terms of if they make the playoffs, anything can happen? Certainly. And I think that their back line, like, yes, Mandy McGlynn is amazing. I don't see her play falling off. I think their back line deserves a lot more credit. I think Kate Del Fava, I don't know why people don't know her name more. I think she's just utterly outstanding. And I think we will start to hear her name quite a bit more. And this is a team also that's conceded only 10 goals in 12 games. The only two teams that have conceded fewer goals are Washington and Gotham. And that's it. Like, this is a strong back line with a strong goalkeeper. And if you have that, I feel like anything can happen. And you can look at Utah and say, well, there's no star, but I kind of think that might be their superpower. They have a lot of people that can score goals. Do they rely on one player? No. Is that a problem? Maybe, but I actually think that might be a massive benefit for this team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't give a shit about stars. Who cares? Louisville went to the playoffs last year with one star. And, Utah can potentially follow that path. If Coonratz's strategy was to bank points so that they could have some breathing room when they come back, it worked, because it's going to be very, very difficult for them not to make the playoffs now. Like, the playoff line's probably going to be about 41, 42 points, and they're, halfway there, more than that? And they're only a third of the way through the season. That's a very interesting way to think about pacing a 30-game season with a 1 month break in between. It could pay off. All right.
Gosh, I'm torn. I'm going to go with they are who we thought they were, and I'm going to say Seattle Reign.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say about this team. Like, what is the plan for scoring goals? And what has the plan been? Because this isn't a new thing. I don't understand how Laura Harvey still has a job, and I know that she's beloved in this league, and she should be, and whatever. I have really no opinions about her as a person. But as a coach, I just want to know what she's telling the team. Like, oh no, don't score on the other team. That's not the plan. Because that's what it kind of seems like. They've scored one goal in the run of play over their last 7 matches.
It was against Boston. It was a great goal.
So
I'm so happy for them, but maybe do it more. I don't know.
Yeah, no, they're a fucking nightmare. And I think there are a bunch of factors that are in play, whether it's the Carlisle group and the Sounders not wanting to spend money on the roster, or it's Laura Harvey deciding that I'm going to be as miserable an anti-football coach as I possibly can, and unfortunately I don't have the pieces to pull that off at the end of the day, or it's a little bit of both. But thank goodness that Maddie Mercado's having a nice season, because without her, you'd really be shit out of luck. Mia Fischel still isn't somehow up to speed, if you want to be charitable about it. And nobody else is going to offer any quality chance creation. Maybe they're even playing a little bit better than their underlying data would indicate. But when you factor in all the unpleasantness of having to watch them and the fact that, they're probably not going to make the playoffs and they wouldn't deserve to, that, I think we are who they thought they were. Perfect.
Yeah, I think both of us picked them 9th preseason. I think they're probably more like the 11th best team, but because Seattle is Seattle and they always do this, they will probably have a handful of points more than they should. And that probably is good enough for 9th place. So I just always have the thought, and it always makes me sound like such a hater because I am from Portland, but Seattle's a great soccer city. Some would argue the best, not me, but some. And I think the thing that I find so depressing is, if I really loved soccer, it would be very hard to watch the Reign week in, week out as a fan. It really stamps the joy out of the game. And I think they have pieces that could be exciting. I don't know if Laura Harvey should lose her job, but from an aesthetics point of view, it would certainly make my weekends more enjoyable if we didn't have to watch as much Laura Harvey ball. And that sucks to say. But
and given the fact that this entire approach, both to roster building and to tactics, has carried over across multiple owners and GMs over the last 4 years, kind of feels like maybe this does fall at Harvey's feet. Maybe that's an oversimplification, but it is interesting that like this started long before the Carlisle group bought the team. It started before Leslie Gallimore came on board. You know, it has also iterated across multiple different versions of this lineup, and it's just always the same fucking shit.
Yeah, I think a new system would just kind of inject life into the team. That's the only reason I'm on Laura Harvey out train, because I want them to be good. It's fun when the Reign are good.
Yeah, agreed.
I totally agree. I had them in less than meets the eye, but for all of these reasons, because I'm kind of sitting here looking at them like, how are they in 10th? I feel like they should be lower.
Exactly.
This is what they always do.
To everybody's point about Laura Harvey, unfortunately, I agree. Like, Laura Harvey's brand of soccer, football, whatever you say it, like, it's never been the greatest to watch. Even when the Reign were in the NWSL final, in the NWSL championship, it was never that great to watch. It was fun because Rose Lavelle was there. And watching Rose Lavelle is fun. But I remember that team, and I remember when Rose Lavelle was hurt, and I remember how terrible they were when Rose Lavelle was not there. And I know Laura Harvey says she doesn't want to structure her team around a star, but the reality of that team was that if she wasn't there, that team wasn't making the NWSL championship. I think it's very similar here. I said a while ago, like, I think Laura Harvey has gotten complacent. I know I'm just sitting in a chair like an armchair expert saying that. When you speak to her, it certainly doesn't seem like she's gotten complacent, but maybe a switch up. Maybe if she wants to switch up the system, maybe a switch up of teams for her to coach for. I think she's a great coach. It's very clear that players love playing for her. And that is a quality that can never go understated in the NWSL specifically.
But it's also a good reminder that only can go so far, right?
Exactly, yeah. I think stale would be the word I would use to describe Seattle.
That's great. I really like that description.
Thank you.
It wasn't always this way. The 2014 and 2015 teams were not like this. And they had a very specific advantage in that they had more talent than everybody else, basically, which means they could play high possession, one touch, breaking lines, gorgeous goals kinds of soccer. But that train left the station years ago. Like, you do not have the structural advantages to exploit that you used to. And Seattle just never learned to pivot. And whether that's Harvey or whether that's the instability behind the scenes with ownership and with the front office, who knows? But like, you can't cash those checks the way that you used to when you were playing in Tequila. It's just not an option anymore. And this is the result. So that's a bummer. Yeah, Eric, what's your next pick?
This is tough because it's like we're right in the middle of this and you start needing to pick strategically and figuring out what teams you'll be able to make credible arguments for later on.
Exactly.
And so for me, I think I'm just going to offer my San Diego Wave as legit contender argument here, which is to say, I don't think that they fit particularly well in any other category. And they're a legit contender because they're already a very good team with a bunch of really interesting pieces. They can hit you a bunch of different ways. Dudinha is like so real and so good. And
only 20 years old.
Only 20 years old. It breaks my brain.
Yeah.
You need to game plan for her at this point, and you need to game plan for her. And Catarina Macario hasn't shown up yet. And like this already good team, this team that is probably like host a playoff game, borderline fringy, is about to add one of the single best lock pickers in the world to be a part of their offense. And Trinity Byers is back and looks like a solid piece. You can just like run out there to grab goals late in games. And the defense is like good. I don't like it. It's the Didi problem, and it's another easy solve. It's like if you had a legit goalkeeper, this San Diego Wave team would be great. If they keep sticking with Didi, I'm worried for them. But they have enough ability to possess the ball and to attack at you that they might be able to endure having Didi as their goalkeeper. And that seems really mean, but I think that they're a legitimate contender and a team I really wouldn't want to face in the playoffs.
Strip out the context, look under the hood. They're the number 4 attack, and they're the number 1 defense. They're fine. Like, the projections think they're going to be a top 4 side this year. Does the projection model think that they'll regress? Yeah, but it doesn't matter because they're so stacked. Like, as
also,
you say,
the model doesn't know about Catarina Macario.
And the model doesn't know about Macario yet. And so, like, you're right. Just spend the money to, like, get a goalkeeper and maybe add us just, like, a little bit of midfield depth. And I think you're right as Reign.
You know who they could really use? Kaylin Sheridan would be a great fit for this team.
You just got Ashtoned.
I'm super high on Leah Godfrey. it's hard to argue anything but what you all have just said about San Diego for every single reason you just mentioned. And if they win the Shield, I still wouldn't necessarily say they're a shoo-in to win the NWSL championship.
Well, no one is.
As somebody, certainly, I'm going to say as somebody who's watched a lot of Arsenal women, who would consider myself an Arsenal women fan, I think
you bear the scars.
I think that Jonas chokes at all of the wrong moments, and we'll see how that maybe plays out in the back half of the season, or maybe even in the playoffs.
Well, I never want to give one white man that kind of power. So I hope we don't have to lay the choke job all at his feet. Doc, what have you seen from San Diego this season?
I really like watching them play. I like their team build up. I think we're just talking about a team that's really hard to watch. San Diego's really easy to watch. The players that have stood out to me, Lee Godfrey, Melody Barcenas has really just surprised me. I think I just wasn't familiar with her game, to be honest. And I was watching her this weekend. I'm kind of like, wow, she's great. She's very young and very good.
So you would be not blamed for not knowing much about her game, because though she's been a pro since she was like 15 and in braces, she just hasn't played very much, which has been interesting. This trend in the league moving towards signing U18 players, we remember the ones who are and always were destined to be superstars. Your Olivia Moultries, your Claire Huttons, et cetera, and so forth. But Barcenas is this interesting case where she's been slow walked her entire adolescence, and now that work might be paying off. What her potential ultimately will be is still not written in stone, but it's very useful for San Diego to have that kind of spark plug off the bench and getting more starting minutes now.
Yeah. All right, Evan, officially your turn.
Okay, great. In the bounces will come, I'm going to take the Boston Legacy. Now, we are in an interesting zone with some of these categories because, San Diego, someone could have made the argument for less than meets the eye because they're probably playing a little bit over their heads relative to their true talent. But it's not by much, and it won't matter at the end of the day because they will be a playoff team and they're probably a top 4 team. Boston, I don't think is going to make the playoffs. Do I think they're as bad as their record suggests? I do not. I think that when you peel under the hood, they are a pretty solid defensive unit with a forward in Aisata Traore who's actually generating some very good individual chances for them.
She's so good. I am really high on her. After the first couple games for Boston, I'm like, we all have to keep an eye on this player.
Coming back to the theme of the last 6 months with Boston is we just had no idea what they would be because so many players just didn't have any kind of track record playing at a high level. But they are demonstrating a philosophy. They're demonstrating a good eye for talent in a lot of places. Alba Canho is a very promising player. Amanda Gutierrez, when she can get starting minutes, which is a whole other conversation, is really, really good, and her and Traore make for a very nice pairing. This is not a playoff team, probably in the aggregate, not a particularly good team, but they are not a disaster the way that we thought they might be in preseason. The thing that's a fucking bummer about them is the fouling and Casey Murphy, who's let in a lot of goals that she probably shouldn't have.
What do we think Boston would look like if they had even a league average goalkeeper right now? Because I don't know the numbers, to be frank, but Casey Murphy has to be. She's been so bad that her numbers probably don't reflect how bad she's been.
Oh, sure. Yeah. No, I think they're probably 10th or 11th, if you adjusted for that.
Okay. Yeah,
so
I could see that.
That's, and again, for an expansion team, that's kind of respectable in the aggregate. You're not going to turn this ship around and become a playoff side, but also you are probably more respectable than your 0.8 points per game would suggest. Yeah.
I like all the points you make.
I know. Listen, and it's because they are awful to watch a lot of the time. They are awful to watch.
Yeah. I feel like I am an eye test person sitting among a bunch of statistic people.
It's why we want you here.
Yeah, you need to be the gadfly.
So I think, honestly, it's hard to make... Everything you said is correct, so I understand why you put them where you put them. I personally had them in We Are Who They Thought They Were.
Sure.
They're a shit team, and we thought they would be that way. Is that okay for an expansion side? Yeah, they get a pass this year. But this is a team that, very similar to Arianna, I was looking at Denver comparatively against Boston before this season started, and I was like, you can see the puzzle with Denver. You can see what they're trying to build. You look at Boston, and it's well, she was available, and she was available, and she was available. So, throw them on a field and it'll be fine. And it looks like that. Do they have heart? Yes. Or can I stomach watching them play because of that? Yes. Is Traore really fun to watch? Yes. And other than that, I'm kind of like, not much here.
Well, I would maybe push back on the idea that their recruitment strategy was haphazard.
Yeah,
I don't think it was that. I don't think that they were able to put together a playoff caliber squad. But I'm not sure that anybody but the most delusional person inside the Legacy front office would have legitimately thought that. They probably need a little bit more spend and a little bit more time together. You know, one of the things that Eric and I talked about in preseason that I thought when I discovered it was actually really important is that it's not just that, like, there's hardly any NWSL experience on the field among the players. There's hardly any NWSL experience off the field among the coaching staff or the front office. And that is never happened before. To have all three of those zones have such lack of experience all happening at the same time is completely new to the way that squads are built and clubs enter the league. We're probably going to see it more as we go forward with more expansion. So I think that they had an idea about what they wanted to do, and maybe they just didn't have the talent to have it reach its full potential. And so now they're like, well, fuck, we can't catch up to a lot of, loose ball recoveries, and so we have to make some pretty bad fouls, and that's the only way we can slow the opposition down. And oh shit, Bianca St. George did what?
Yeah.
So I
maybe
think
they spent most of their money on their rebrand. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, and that's a whole other fucking problem.
Can I just say that, like, I continue to think that Boston year 3 will be in a better position than Denver year 3.
Yeah.
Like, I think that they have not done anything to hamstring themselves, and their roster is, actually going to age appropriately.
So with my second pick are who we thought they were. I am going to take the Orlando Pride.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm a little surprised, I think.
I am a little surprised in myself. But I was sitting with my thoughts about Orlando and looking at some of the numbers, thinking about their performances. They are a team that I think are probably closer to my expectations of them in preseason than maybe other people's expectations of them in preseason were. The underlying data and their top-line results are in pretty close alignment, and it is quite clear what the game plan is in order for them to survive. And I'm not even going to say thrive or find success, but just survive. That is keep Barbara Banda healthy and keep generating set pieces. That's all they got, There's really nothing else that they can offer. I was looking at every team's top XG generator, every team's player who's generated more XG for them than the other players, and how much of a share of their team's total XG did that represent. And historically, your top XG player takes up about a quarter of your team's total XG by the end of the season. Barbara Banda has generated almost half of Orlando's XG.
I was going to guess 90%.
Yeah, it feels like 90.
And by the way, historically, you know who was in second place? Sam Kerr with Chicago in 2019, and she was at 41%. Yeah. Banda is far and away the only thing they got. And because they need to generate set pieces in order to create any kind of scoring opportunities when Banda gets triple teamed and is unavailable in open play, Banda's share of set piece XG relative to the total amount of XG that she's generated is close to 20% right now, which is the highest of her career and well above the league median for strikers, which is about 11 or 12%. So they're taking the best parts of Banda's game away from her by making their attacks so set-piece focused, which they kind of don't have a choice but to do. They're probably going to be a playoff team that finishes in 6th or 7th place, and that is going to be pretty deserved because the team is, whether it's through injury or family leave or just the fact that the 2024 side really, really overperformed in that double season, more so than maybe we all would care to acknowledge. And this is just natural regression. You take all of those causal strands and just throw them into the soup. It's just a real bummer, where they're at right now, even though they will probably be a playoff team if Banda stays healthy.
I don't know if they will be.
And you would be right to say so. That's the thing.
Yeah, I think I have all the same thoughts. I just came to a different bucket, but I think in for the same reasons. I think that they would be, for me, they'd be in less than meets the eye. And I would not be surprised if this team missed out on the playoffs for all of the reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah, and the projections basically have them tied for 8th place with Denver right now. It just doesn't feel like it's in their hands at the moment, you know?
It seems like the gods have conspired to never allow Barbara Banda and Jackie Ovalle to play at the same time. Like, and in a sense, like, I would love to see what Banda plus support looks like, but I don't know how much of that we're going to see this year. And for me, Barbara Banda is the best striker in the world, and it's just like at no point, whether with her national side, I mean, she has more attacking support with her national side, just no defense. But like at no point does she have like the full complement that most great elite strikers have around them. And that makes it both more impressive what she's doing, because there is one plan, and it is shut Barbara Banda down and let everyone else attack. And that still seems to not be enough for lots of opponents. And Barbara Banda can, as she did with San Diego, can just take you apart even if she doesn't score. She's so good.
Yeah, and ignore the support around her or lack thereof. Like, I've dug into the data and adjusted for sub effects and strip out, quality of opposition and compared her to other big time strikers around the world. Nobody generates more XG per game than she does at that position. Yeah. More than Eva Pajor, more than Bunny Shaw, more than anyone. Wow. And she plays in the toughest league in the world. It's fucking insane what she can do.
Yeah, I think we're not talking about Barbara Banda enough somehow, because somehow I feel like I'm always talking about her, but somehow it's still not enough. A lot of the goals she scores are just come from nothing too, which is interesting. And I think that's because Orlando just doesn't have the supporting cast around her. I wonder, what is Orlando without Barbara Banda?
I think that there's Chicago.
Ooh, I kind of love that.
I think they're better than Chicago, but you're in the spirit of the answer. I don't know how far off you are.
Orlando have conceded 18 goals this year so far.
A lot of that's Morehouse.
Morehouse has been bad.
I will say,
had a really rough season.
Morehouse has had a rough season, but you cannot sit here and tell me that the combination of Haley Mace and Rafael has been actually successful either at the center back pairing. It's been brutal to watch.
Well, the thing that's actually stood out to me more is the recent decision to move Corey Dyke inside and move Haley Mace back outside. That has not looked secure in the slightest. And that makes me nervous for how Seb Hines is thinking about, where he can optimize every place on the field. Like, yeah, it sucks, man, that you don't have Kylie Nadanner this year, but like this is no way to live, dude. This is just no way to live. And it's going to help that Carrie Abello is back. It means that you can potentially move Dyke to the bench and move Mace inside and keep Oyan and Abello outside, and maybe that doesn't expose Morehouse as much. But that doesn't seem to have been the plan up to now, and they've had Abello back for a couple of weeks. So we'll see with a month of rest and retooling what they want to do. But if you take out every team's best XG generator from their totals and compare what's left over, no team loses more attacking value than Orlando does when you take Banda out of the equation. And it's not only not close, it's like a chasm. They're in the Marianas Trench and everyone else is on the surface of the ocean.
I think maybe they're Seattle without Banda.
I was just thinking that. I was like, I feel like Chicago is too harsh. Maybe they're Seattle.
Yeah. But these are not compliments we're paying them.
No, the opposite of whatever that is.
All right, third pick.
All right. I got to go less than meets the eye, and I was so worried Evan was going to take this team who we thought they were, but Bay FC is less than meets the eye, and that is really saying something considering that they are not good. But this team is, by the luck metric, the luckiest team in the league, and they're still god-awful. Isn't that insane? This team has somehow been lucky, and this is what they have. They have a literal Roman statue in Cristiana Girelli playing striker who cannot go anywhere or do anything.
Now.
Everything falls apart from there. Look, I'm not saying that she wasn't once a great player. I'm saying that in this NWSL in 2026,
it's rough.
She is not a great player.
I was so excited when she signed, and I was.
I know, me too.
That's the Marron talking, you understand.
It is.
It's Claire Hutton and... Hi, Gertrude. It's Claire Hutton, Rachel Kundananji, and desperation. And that's Chicago. That's describing Chicago.
It's also Jordan Silkowitz, who has stood on her head, and that's why they're overperforming.
Jordan Silkowitz, I don't think enough can be said about her. I was seeing that she was getting a lot of hate online about what happened against Chicago, and I think that's absolutely, utterly absurd. For the record, I think she was concussed when that happened. Second of all, we'll move on from it. She has stood on her head. She has been probably the most, I'm going to just go ahead and say it, the most valuable goalkeeper in this entire league up until this point. You could probably make an argument for it at the very least.
Totally valid.
Here's the thing about Bay FC, and it's unfortunate for Bay FC fans, but I think if you stay patient, there's a vision here. And I know everybody was told that, 2 years ago in the inaugural season, and they had a great inaugural season. They made the playoffs. Last year was abysmal. And now you kind of have to wipe the slate clean and restart, which is kind of what's happening right here. But if you look past some of the terrible performances, there is a structure forming, and it's a forming around Claire Hutton. Is Rachel Kundananji going to be your Batman? No. Rachel Kundananji is Robin. You need a Batman, and it's not Christina Giorelli, unfortunately. I think if Christina Giorelli was Christina Giorelli that we all grew up watching, this might be a different conversation, because you talk about a team where goals are hard to come by. There is I have no idea when the game starts who's going to put the ball in the back of the net.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they do either, to be totally honest. And then it's also unfortunate timing, because you look at who's on maternity leave and who's injured, and it's the entire starting back four, who are also veterans who are going to start to probably make their way out. I mean, obviously Alex Pfeiffer was already mentioned. Heather Gilchrist injured, Caprice Didasco, Emily Menges, Abby Dahlkemper, Alyssa Melanson, all out for various reasons. That decimated them. I think the structure's there. I think the future's bright, but it's not in this season.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I wanted to talk a little bit about the goalkeeping, because Jordan Silkowitz has been awesome, and I think she's been flying under the radar a little bit because Bay is just underwhelming. And then Emmy Allen is in goal over the weekend, and the first 3 shots on goal went in. And it's okay, so what would Bay look like without Silkowitz? I think everyone got a really good picture of that, and it's not good.
Yeah, I think about that Silkowitz red card. It's so brilliant, because she's literally saying Chicago's offense is so bad I can take a red card here. I genuinely think that's the choice she has made, where it's I'm, giving Chicago a clean run at goal now that I've sort of misread this ball is probably not as good a decision as taking a red card here. And so I give her some credit here. She's been incredible. We were joking about doing a bit on the show called the buy you a drink, the player who outperforms the team that put them in a terrible position. And the first 2 weeks we were joking about it, it was very clearly the drink should go to Jordan Silkowitz, because she's that alone. I think Comedi's been a disaster. It's Silkowitz, Hutton, Kundananji, and maybe Hannah Bibar are pieces that are part of a solid 11 going forward. And I just can't say that about anybody else. And that's really rough when you're talking about 7 players who also have to start games.
Yeah, there was one of these past weekends, there were overlapping games, and I think I had Bay on the screen that I would flip to, not the main screen. And every time I looked over, the other team was just coming down their throats. And it was in transition. Maybe it was Utah, I can't remember. But I remember thinking just what is Bay going to be okay? Because it's just every single time. And maybe I look every couple of minutes, but it was ruthless.
Taylor Huff's been a bright spot, I think, too, I will say. But we shouldn't be sitting here having to pick out little bright spots, I suppose.
Taylor Huff has in spurts been really inspired. I will agree with that. I think that we should have had a category that was called second screen teams that you really don't want to watch, and Bay FC would have been peak second screen team.
Bay, Rain, Boston.
Yeah, Bay, Rain, Boston, Chicago are your second screen teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where it's just oh, I hate that this is happening. All right, Doc, you are up with your next category. You still have legit contender and bounces will come to go.
Yes. So I want to go with bounces will come, and I'm going to put North Carolina.
Nice.
Okay. I was really scared someone was going to snag this team. Results lagging behind the performances. I've been really impressed with the Courage the last couple of games. I think the 2 goals that they scored yesterday were genuinely brilliant. Brilliant team goals. I think when Ashley Sanchez is on, the whole team is on, and it's really hard to break them down. They're able to ping passes around, one-touch passing. They feel well coached in that it's almost like the players see the passing lanes before they are evident, because it seems like they've been doing it, they get a lot of reps in, so it's second nature. And where are they in the table right now?
7th, I think.
They're 7th. Yeah, I think they're going to be better than a 7th place team. I really do.
First off, can we talk Ashley Sanchez obviously is putting together a borderline MVP campaign. It's certainly with the top numbers, but also yesterday was just like a perfect example of like, she did all the hard labor on both of those goals and didn't get assists. But if you watch the game, you watched her Meg Kennedy Fuller. I'm with you. I think this team is better than the 7th place position that they're in. But I also want to just like shed some light on like Ryan Williams for being out of this world this season.
She has been. I think she flies under the radar. Thank you for saying this.
She's just been one of the best fullbacks in the league and really does cover for playing Danny Weatherholt at the other fullback position.
Hey, Felly Rauk is back. We might not have to deal with that much longer.
But like what I'm getting at is like she's been so dynamic both defensively and just in her like self-contained passing sense. Riley Jackson's coming into her own, starting to play balls that are absurd. And that front three of EJ, Sanchez, and Manaka, if you stop one, you still have 2 other huge problems to deal with. Like there's a free flowing agent no matter how good your defense is who can tear you apart.
Yeah. I really like watching North Carolina. I wish that they were doing this when I was there, covering them in person, but I'll forgive them.
I'm just happy that they seem to have an attacking philosophy. They were wandering in the desert for 3 years with nobody who could score goals, and now they have 3 players, 3, who can score goals for them? What is this, 2018?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, they might even have more than that, but it's like 3 big ones.
Yeah.
Because like they're using Ali Schlegel in the right ways, which is just like the 4th piece in there that you bring on and like just let clean up the whatever else is around. I mean, that's a legit team.
I feel like Japanese players are shining in the NWSL, and I was just kind of wondering to myself, why? What do you guys think?
I think there's a couple of things. One is that, unfortunately, a lot of players, I think, have outlived the WE League's usefulness, which was created essentially as like a space for the Japanese national team to like have full year training. Like it's barely fully professional. Once you get good enough, you don't need to stay. And I think with players like Manaka or, you know, let's say Micah Hamano at Chelsea, like they got bought young because I think there was a market inefficiency to exploit in transfers with players like that. And so then what's the old heads? Like, I mean, Japan's just a good soccer country for women's soccer.
Yeah,
and I think like, I don't know. I actually have to check to see like what the status of Japan is with like the UK's point system, because, you know, you got to like rack up a certain amount of quote unquote worthiness points in order to like get a visa to work there. And so Chelsea, Man City, and Arsenal, barring the Japanese players who are already there, might be getting shut out because they have less access to players like that. I don't know. I won't say that definitively, but it's something worth investigating, because you are right. I mean, especially like it's North Carolina and Utah in particular are just stacked with great Japanese talent, a lot of which are great players and won't be going to the World Cup next year, you know?
I think the other thing that is always true about at least a lot of the Japanese players that end up in this league is they are extremely technical and also can play a bunch of different positions. So they're like a coach's dream. And as we've gone, not that this league isn't still transitional, but as more coaches like put an emphasis on control, they are perfect control players. And they are, you know, Manaka is a perfect pace breaker. She can open a game up really quickly. And then Narumi, and what I've loved about her, like just in general this season, is she's a pace setter. She slows the game to what she wants the game to look like. Shinomi's been fucking fantastic for North Carolina in the spurts that she's been. Like, I think the league is getting more technical, and that makes it a friendlier league for a lot of Japanese players to come and flourish and demonstrate that they can play 3 positions well and just sort of fit a system. They're all like I don't want to say that because it sounds like you're essentializing, but name a Japanese player in this league that is not like a steady hand with the ball. Like in this league, just it's tough.
What is the thing that Utah got their ass kicked on for 2 straight years? Counterattacks through the middle. What does Narumi Miura do for you? You know? And I think the same can be said for like you lose Denise O'Sullivan and now Shinomi Koyama is like the next player up, who they did a really smart job amid all the other multitude of factors last year causing chaos, like transitioned her and like slow walked her into being ready for that. You know?
Was North Carolina the first team that brought Japanese players in?
No, the first really big time NWSL Japanese player was Naomi Kawasumi with Seattle in 2014. So it predates North Carolina by a couple of years. But, you know, she was in the minority at that point. And it took a while for there to get to some level of saturation. All
right.
Your third pick. We've got 5 teams left.
Sarah, you got less than meets the eye and who we thought they were.
Okay, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
Ooh, it's really getting hard here.
Exactly. This is what makes it fun.
This is when it goes.
Okay, less than meets the eye. I think this might cause a bit of a stir.
Do it.
Kansas City Current.
Okay.
Ooh.
All right.
Yeah. It's fun that nobody wanted to talk about them so far.
Yeah, because they're kind of a tricky one, and
They put Tealman on the screen too much, so I don't know what they do on the field. Like, I'm just always watching.
You're scarred by that? Too traumatic?
I'm just kidding. Well, honestly, it is. I was watching with a few non-NWSL folks over the weekend, and it's like, oh my gosh, why is this guy always on the screen? I'm like, I have the same questions. It's every weekend. Like,
Sarah, you can speak to this. The shark jumping moment was when he showed up at the NWSL Awards.
oh my gosh, that was wild.
to do
know.
what?
To just be a guy.
Just
To be a
there.
mascot.
Just be a mascot.
Does he walk around like that all the time? You know, it doesn't matter. I'm for my narrative in my head, he does. That's what he looks
I
like
haven't
all the
met
time.
one person that watches this league that likes seeing him on their screen.
I feel bad about it because I'm sure he's awesome.
I just want a podcast of you shitting on Teal.
Be careful what you
I
wish
have to say,
for.
It's not his fault. It's the fucking league's fault. For like, it's like, we should have fans like that, and they should be unremarkable, and they don't need to be the focal point of like halftime bits. He's a good fan, whoever he is.
But back to the players on the field.
Yeah.
Kansas City Current, I think, Sarah, one could have made an argument for them as legit contenders.
Totally.
Less than meets the eye, or bounces will come.
Couldn't
You
agree
went with
more.
less than meets the eye. What's living in your heart to place them there?
Well, there's so much to say about Kansas City Current because what a season they've already had, right? It's been a roller coaster ride to say the least. They've certainly finished strong. They've won 4 out of their last 5. They're currently sitting in 6th place. You could kind of look at that and just say this is the Kansas City Current that we saw last year, but they certainly are not. And I think Kansas City has been the biggest question mark in my mind all season because of how terribly they started. And you just kind of were sitting there and looking at their lineup and their starting lineup and their bench. And it's like, what in the world is going on? You add Croy Bethune. Sure, you lose Claire Hutton, but you add Croy Bethune. You look at their midfield. You have Ali Sentnor. You have Lola Bonta, Croy Bethune. I mean, the list goes on. And the question for me was like, what isn't clicking? Obviously, Temo Shawinga was hurt for a certain number of games. Can't remember how many. Immediately, Temo Shawinga comes back, and I really liken Kansas City in this way to Orlando. But then also, this is the piece of the puzzle that doesn't make sense to me. You look at Orlando, and you kind of are like, okay, I understand why they have to rely so heavily on Barbara Banda. You look at Kansas City, and it's like, why is nobody producing other than Temwa Shawinga? For me, and I guess I'll go back to the eye test, this team, when they're good, but this team, when I watch them play, something isn't clicking on the field. I'm not going to go outright and say, like, something is wrong off the field, but, like, sometimes you put a lot of talent on the field and things don't necessarily click. And I think that will be the story of this Kansas City Current season. I think that there's a lot of talent, and when it clicks, that's great, but I think that this is a team where it just certainly doesn't click enough. And for who they have on their roster, they've been relatively unimpressive to me.
That's fair, actually.
Well, I mean, like, what's the benchmark? You know, I think, like, what I have come back to a lot when Eric, like, was getting red in the face demanding that Chris Armas be kicked to the curb around, like, week 3, week 4.
By the way, I'd still fire him.
Yeah, I said that too around that week. I was like, ooh, what's changed? Not a ton on the roster, but I can point to one position that's changed.
His hand was forced by Dabinia getting injured and having to go back to what they did last year. And suddenly the team that they were last year with a double pivot is better than playing 3-10s that don't know what to do with each other. And that's not an Armas innovation. That's not an Armas innovation. That's having your hand
he's a good
forward.
coach. I'm just saying he's not the reason that they've had issues.
No, of course not. It was you didn't have Temwa then.
I think it's fair to say that he's part of the problem.
How would we know? Genuinely. Like, how would we know?
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I guess, people just don't like him as a person for reasons?
Can I say that, Armas aside, the less than meets the eye argument that I think Sarah laid out is totally fine. I think that Croy Bethune's been very good. Like, that's been clear to me. Once she sort of found the role that was created by the absence of other players around her. But I still have, like, not a lot of faith in ultimately what this defense is. I have not a lot of faith that this double pivot, like, there's enough depth between Bailey Feist and an aging Labonta to really make this work long term. So like I don't hate this, even though I think less than meets the eye is like a season after the best team in league history. You know,
Yeah,
like
And that's
But
like,
that's
like-
what they're measuring. They should be measured
but
against.
you shouldn't. I actually disagree with that. You should not measure that because no team has ever done what they did in the regular season last year, and it's going to be very difficult to replicate. Teams who perform at that level don't repeat it usually.
Well,
like
I don't
Orlando
necessarily-
of 2025 was not Orlando of 2024. You know what I mean?
Of course, but I think that you could argue that the fall off between Orlando of 24 to Orlando 25 was not as steep as the fall off between Kansas City of 25 and Kansas City of 26. Like,
But also,
sure that they're not going to be that amazing. That's a once in a lifetime season. However, something's not right in Kansas City, and something stinks to me. I don't know. It's not clicking. I can't put my finger on it. I can't go to statistics. I can just say, for me, something's not clicking.
The thing that stinks is that Chris and Angie Long are sticking their nose into front office business. That's why Croy Bethune's there, and that's why Claire Hutton isn't anymore. And that's what is creating all of this imbalance. It's not Chris Armas, who's just another bald white guy. He's nothing. He's not good. He's not bad. He's nothing. The fact that the ownership has decided that they can make better decisions than Ryan Dell about who should be on the roster and how to balance the salary cap leaves you with 3 number 10s who you're trying to fit on the field at the same time before Dabinia got hurt. And I will not deny that things really did turn around when at the same time Dabinia got hurt and Chewinga got back to full match fitness. Both of those things happened in the exact same time. And when they did, they started playing well again. So there's more balance up front. You have Chewinga making everybody feel like idiots because she's either the best or the second best player in the league. And like the other thing is that like the first 4 or 5 weeks, like Lorena was a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
And like right now, is she like above water on her shot stopping? No, but she's essentially league average, which she wasn't after those first 4 or 5 games. And so like you're not leaking dumb goals the way that you were at the start of the season. And so, like, this team just feels like a very solid playoff team with one of the most dangerous individuals sitting at the top of its formation. And because you have players like Bethune used properly and you have players like Cooper running around making trouble, their attack is never not going to be scary. I think Eric's point is the right one in that, like, this is the longest season ever, and where is the depth in midfield? Can you survive when Rocky Rodriguez gets healthy again, central midfield depth chart that a Shield or championship contender should be staring down? Obviously not. You know, that's not what wins you titles, you know. So how do you weather that storm? It's going to be very, very hard. But like this team is like just a very solid playoff group. I would have put them into legit contenders, not for a top 4 spot or a Shield spot or to win the whole thing, but that like this team is basically like where they should be relative to their table position.
Just wanted to talk a little bit about Allie Sentner. I think she's having a great season. Anyone else? No?
Totally. She's having a great season.
I don't agree, but that's
Don't
fine.
agree. Well, what do her underlyings look like? I think...
She's got
maybe...
a negative position-weighted net G+.
Oh, good. So my eyes lie to me then, because I...
By the way, I actually think it's tough because she's being defined as a striker, which is like
that.
It's only
she's
sort
having
of
a lot
true.
of like she's having like a lot of positional index issue. Like I'm totally fine with that. Whereas like Croy Bethune's having like an out of this world position weighted net G+ season, but it's because she's being defined as an attacking midfielder and she's an 8.
Mm-hmm.
So we're still sort of like some of this stuff I feel like has not corrected itself yet.
Yeah.
That said, what was your expectation for Sentner? Because I totally buy if your expectation was low that she's outperforming that.
Yeah, it was really low. So I watched a ton of Allie Sentner in person at UNC, and I thought that she had kind of like one move, which was take a player on and then just like go past them. And she relied on that in college, and it worked because UNC was a powerhouse. And then her transition to the pros really underwhelmed me. And so I guess when I watch her now, I'm like, oh, she's not going to be that great. And then I think that there have been flashes from her that I'm like, oh, wow. And honestly, I think Michelle Cooper has been good this season, too, which is
I don't disagree.
And I think like when Chewinga is there, you are able to hide some of Sentner's deficiencies a little bit better because you can use her as a decoy and open up space for Chewinga to occupy. And there have been a couple of games recently where Chewinga has just been like sitting at the top of the 6-yard box all by herself. And you think to yourself, like, how could a defense allow this to happen? And it's because so much attention is being sucked away from her. And like, if you don't have to rely on Allie Sentner as your chance creator or as your chance taker, and just as someone who like needs to occupy center backs to create space for others, that has value, especially when like the potential or like the ceiling of production from players like Chewinga and Cooper is off the charts. You know, that could potentially have some use value. Now, I would prefer Debinha to be their number 9 cover than Sentner. And in a perfect world, I would like them to go out and buy a proper center forward, but I don't think they have the cap space for that. So we're stuck with this bullshit. You know?
By the way, I think that this actually totally illuminates Sarah's point about like this team, and it is how you perceive their relationship to the expectations, both on a player level and as an organization, and as like what your last year screwed with everyone's head because they were so good. And so like a hyper analytical take can say that like, of course, regression XYZ, but I do think that there is something to the eye test saying that this team is like less than the sum of what I even imagined its parts to be, and that there's reasonable disagreement about that. And the same deal with like, if you thought Allie Sentner was like kind of dog shit and maybe not a good pro, she is definitely better than that this year. But also like, if you think Allie Sentner is like definitely should be on the World Cup squad in ink, like she's not having that season either. And so it really is, this is such a team that like every perception of it is warped.
This is a Rorschach test.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
The Allie Sentner of it all is so interesting because I don't feel like I've ever thought either of those things. I've never thought she had a terrible year, and I've never thought she should be inked in the U.S. Women's National Team. I thought she was outstanding, at least at Utah. Maybe she had a tough debut, but I thought she showed well in Utah as a goal scorer and as a opportunity creator. I think she had a really hard time fitting into Kansas City when she arrived there last year, and I didn't know what to expect from her this year and how they were going to move things around to allow her to play a position that she just quite simply feels a little more comfortable in. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'll come back to, I think everything you all just said, it kind of points to there being a lot of individuals. Maybe this is why it doesn't meet the eye test for me, is because, like Evan was saying, there's so many players who are just simply not quite set up for success within their position, how they really could be, whether they're playing a little out of position, whether you're playing with 2 10s on the field or 3 10s on the field, whatever it is, it's disconnected. Yeah. And there seems like there's a lot of reasons why.
And I think my question is this, is like, ultimately, at the end of the day, when we're in early November, like how much will that have mattered? Because their talent ceiling is so insanely high, unusually high, relative to other teams who face this question that we're trying to figure out, you know?
But by the way, I want to ask this question here because I actually think this will be pretty funny. Okay, so right now the Kansas City Current sit in 6th place. Where are the Kansas City Current at after game 30 for each of you? I picked them first preseason. I have them 3rd in my brain right now.
Wow. I think that they'll end up in 7th, honestly.
Okay.
I'm going to say 4th.
Yeah, I was about to say I'm going to have them in 4th. Yeah.
This is not a widespread, guys. What's so funny is we have such disparate interpretations, and we're all like, yeah, playoff team. Not the best team in the league.
Yeah.
Like,
that's right, man.
When you are the best regular season team in NWSL history by both top line and underlying metrics, and it's not close, your eye starts to get a little bit screwy about like what are teams supposed to do in situations like that the following year, you know? We don't have a league anymore that allows for the North Carolina run in 2017 to 2019. It's just not possible, you know?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
They are, the last thing I'll say, just a fun statistic. They are the only team other than Chicago that has yet to draw. They will either win or they will lose, but that is it.
They are second only to Chicago in fewest percentage of minutes played on an even scoreline, irrespective of result. So they're always playing ahead or playing behind, pretty much.
They were conceding goals early in games to start this season nonstop. And they've sort of calmed that down. I don't know if that, I don't think of that as a particularly repeatable skill, but it was like aberrant when it was happening. And like, I don't think that they've solved something per se, other than Temwood just makes your team better. Well, we're on to our final 4. This distribution is really fun. So the remaining teams are Louisville, Houston, Angel City, and Gotham. And the remaining categories for each person, Sarah, you have who we thought they were. Arianna, you have legit contender. Evan, you have less than meets the eye. And I have bounces will come. So we each need to fill one category.
Oh my God.
and we have 4 teams between them.
Who are the 4? What are the 4 teams again? Louisville, Gotham?
Louisville, Gotham, Houston, Angel City. And
goodness.
you have who we thought they were as your final category.
I feel like I can make an argument for a lot of these. You know what? It hurts my heart to do this, but I do have to put Louisville here.
Fair.
The reason why it hurts my heart to put Louisville here, I guess there's 2 reasons. Number 1, I've been riding for them. I've been riding for them hard since this season started. I just keep saying the results will start. They will start to come. They will start to come. Well, I think that maybe this is the moment I have to officially say they haven't come. I think Bev Yanez is an amazing coach. I think that the front office has not provided what she needs to create a team that will be a playoff contender. And the reason I was riding for them is because of Bev. And I think she's an incredible coach. And I don't know what needs to change at Racing, but certainly they need to provide Bev with more assistance, more help, deeper pockets. Yeah, that's my as least harsh take as I can do, because I really like Bev and I think she's a great coach, and this is in no way an indication of how great of a coach she is.
I think it's perfectly legitimate to take them here. I think I would have leaned a little closer to Bounces Will Come only because they are not the worst team in the league, as the table position would suggest. But they're not anywhere close to the playoff line on how they've performed. Even when you adjust for, like, they've had one extra away game and they've had a really tough schedule, playing, a couple of really tough teams twice, and they've had to play Gotham and they've had to play Utah and North Carolina. They've not had an easy go of it. But even after you make all of those adjustments, it's been really, really, really a big struggle. And they haven't fixed the problem that carried over from last year, which is protecting leads and managing game states and conceding late goals. That still remains a struggle. And it's totally John Neese's fault for not wanting to spend closer to the salary cap. Because how did they make it to the playoffs? They played the same 11 players essentially every single game, and none of them got hurt. And they didn't have that luxury this year. Players have gotten hurt, and it's cost them. It's a real bummer because we all want Bev Yanez to succeed. Nobody wears a pair of Gucci loafers to an awards ceremony better. It's a real drag.
Yeah, it's funny. I had them in Bounces Will Come. Like, if I could put any team in any category, that's where I had them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the way, that is where I was going to put them.
Oh, apologies.
No. You're all good. I actually like this chaos.
This is what we wanted the final round to be.
Who would all of you have put in this category then, if not Racing?
Oh, who we thought they were?
Probably Houston.
Houston? Yeah. I thought Houston were going to be way better than
Wait,
this.
I was going to put Racing in this category.
Yeah, by the way, totally reasonable.
You guys just go skipping down the sidewalk holding hands together, why don't you?
We will.
Anyway, I think the thing that's tough about Louisville is, like, the Bounces Will Come argument believes that they won't be run into the ground with their very short roster. They've been unlucky now, but they also don't have enough talent on hand to recover appropriately. And they have demonstrated that they are a pretty threadbare team that blows leads. That is perfectly qualifying, even if they've been unlucky. And they didn't really replace Ari Borges, and they didn't really replace Janine Sonis. And, like, those are big pieces, even if they're not, like, top-end pieces in getting you into playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Emma
tough.
Sears, going back to the idea about, like, your top XG generator and how much of your team's XG you're taking, Emma Sears has generated only about 17% of Louisville's XG, but that's not because they have a team-level attack. It's that they hardly get chances to create.
Well, Doc has legit contender. Well, I feel like this one's...
It's got to be Houston.
Okay, so I'm going to pick the sensible choice here because the subhead for this category is teams whose performances match their strong results. Gotham is not, like, the best team. They're not, to me. I want to unpack this a little bit with everyone. I'm going to put Gotham here as a legit contender, mostly because they are really legit defensively. So that's, I think, is that enough to call them a really good team? I don't know. Like, do you guys, I want to hear what people have to say. You think so? But
yeah.
I think so.
I think so. I mean, I think that it takes so much more. You get so much further when you're good defensively.
I think the bar in the NWSL defensively is so low. So if any, like, for people who know me and in the NWSL space, I'm always talking about how defending is truly pitiful in this league. Like, I think 1v1 defending needs work. I think oftentimes defenders are caught watching. I don't know what it is. I think it's just true. And maybe we can even talk about the national team. Like, there's just not enough depth at the defensive position. Like, thank God Naomi Girma is who she is once Becky Sauerbrunn retired. Gotham's really great defensively, but the bar for defense in this league is so low.
It devalues that a little bit, is what you're saying?
In a way, I think that's what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. Thank you, yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I actually think that, like, to your point about the U.S.'s disinterest in defending, I think of us as, like, analogous, like, the U.S. women are analogous to the Argentinian men, which is you can just produce attackers like it's nobody's business.
Mhm.
And then the further you go backfield, you're sort of like, what are they doing there? Oh, okay.
That's
Like,
a really nice analogy.
and you're like, oh, yeah, I see they don't emphasize this much. This is why you end up with, like, Tara Rudds becoming defenders. You're just like, seems like a talented person we should convert to a defender. Like, we don't like value the generation of defenders. And I think it makes sense to me that, like, the rare counterpoints in your Tierna Davidsons and your Emily Sonnets are like the cornerstone of this Gotham team. Yeah. And that, like, in other countries who develop Jess Carters, or like this team, like, is clearly built with a desire to not allow goals in and to just muddy the game. We were talking about second screen teams. This is a second screen team because their games are miserable to watch. But unlike the other teams, it's not because they're bad. It's because they grind these games into nothingness. And
smells like another championship to me. I feel like that's how I would describe all of their championship runs.
Yeah, by the way, the only problem is they might not finish low enough in the table to be a Gotham championship team.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Like,
yeah.
But this is the correct category for them. I think that.
Yeah.
I also think that, like, they have good attackers. They have Rose Lavelle. Like.
And Jaden Shaw.
And Jaden Shaw and Jordan
Talk
Dudley.
about Jordan Dudley. Jordan Dudley
Dudley's
is
wild. Yeah.
Fun to watch.
I mean, and they do attack by committee when they decide they want to create chances. Like, those four, Dudley, Lavelle, Esther, and who's the fourth one?
Jaden Shaw?
Jaden Shaw. Pretty even distribution of, like, chance quality among the four of them.
Yeah.
And though they are in 9th place on adjusted XG rate so far this season, which is not what you would expect from a team that loaded with good players, like, they are in 2nd place and really, if you're squinting, tied in defensive performance with San Diego up to this point. And so, like, if you have a really, really solid defensive structure with really creative individuals who can break a game open the way that Gotham has, that can get you pretty far. It's just that we don't often feel it because they often don't have any interest in activating that attacking core. I mean, it's the thing Eric and I have been talking about basically since Juan Carlos Amorós showed up. It's like, how can this team be so aggressive defensively from the front in their counter pressure, be so good at winning the ball in high and dangerous areas, and then just decide to stop moving the ball forward? You know, because Amorós is so obsessed with controlling possession and keeping Gotham the protagonist, while also at the same time not wanting to overexpose them into getting hit in the other direction. And their attack comes entirely down to, like, those rare moments when the individuals decide to, like, do something special. Like, it wasn't a high XG chance, but, like, the finish on Jordan Dudley's goal over the weekend, like, that is such a quintessential Gotham under Juan Carlos Amorós game, right? That, like, they get this really, really special goal from this really, really special attacker, and then they just shut up shop until it's not even a second screen game. It's like, I'm going to put that on my phone because I got stuff going on my tablet and my laptop at the same time. You know, that's their philosophy. And so, like, I actually don't know if I would devalue their defensive performance, Doc, mostly because, like, they keep doing this. They keep being so defensively excellent tactically and technically and in performance over the years that, like, it feels like a real advantage that they bring into a lot of games. And it absolutely is the reason that they won a trophy in 23 and the reason they won a trophy in 25.
Yeah.
And then also have a great goalkeeper behind that defense to boot.
I feel like I get what you're saying, though. Like, Arianna, like, they're in the scheme of the NWSL, this is a fantastic defense. And, like, statistically, perhaps a fantastic defense. And I think about back lines that I adore watching because of their organization and how you simply can't break them down. And this isn't one that comes to mind. However, I still think that they will ride this all the way through this season. This back line is legit in terms of these statistics and these results will continue, and they will continue into the second third and the third of the season. My question is why they aren't scoring more goals, honestly. Like, you look at how many attacking players Midge Purse is playing in the back line now, and they're barely scoring goals. They've scored 12 goals in 11 games. What's
because
that?
Juan Carlos Amorós doesn't give a shit about scoring. I mean, that's the thing. Like,
Do you think he's Sean Nahas in a costume?
Well, and
that sort of extended,
to that point,
like
there is off the record chatter that Sean Nahas has been consulting with Gotham off the books. How interesting!
I didn't know that.
Like,
I genuinely had no idea. I was just making a joke.
Yeah, I mean, my view over the last 3 years is that Gotham is like chaotic good Seattle. You know, like, this is what happens when Seattle's approach goes right, and Seattle is what happens when Gotham's approach goes wrong. You know. But it is not dissimilar in philosophical approach.
Yeah, unsurprising that Rose Lavelle is the transitional player between those two modes. They got 5 points from their first 4 games and scored once. Like, that's outrageous. They're a team that loves a 0-0 game state and loves winning 1-0. And they've conceded in more than once, twice, or like what happened in Mexico was weird, but like they've conceded 2 goals in a game once this season.
Yeah. And Mexico was travel and altitude, you know?
Yeah. And
so.
I think you're honestly spot on here. Like, this is a legit, maybe not an exciting contender, but it is a legit contender for sure.
I think it's that thing always that you have to do as a soccer fan to remember that the best soccer to watch isn't always the soccer that wins the most points, you know?
Yeah.
And very often, like, the least entertaining or fun is the one that ends up hoisting trophies, and it fucking sucks.
I know, I was just trying to think, as you both were speaking, who is the most exciting team in the league? It's easy for me to say who I don't like to watch, but who do I love to watch?
I think it's Portland, San Diego, or Kansas City.
I was going to say San Diego.
I think it's San Diego.
Yeah, that'd be my next. I mean, I really like watching Washington.
I was about to say, or maybe Washington. They play a beautiful brand
Or North
of soccer.
Carolina. I loved watching North Carolina yesterday. All right, we got to do this, like another iteration of this is talking about exciting teams.
Aesthetics versus function. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Just devolving into an architectural debate.
Yeah.
Eric, your last pick. Bounces will come. Houston or Angel City?
There's obviously correct answers between these two things. And my gut says screw Evan over and make him argue. But frankly, he'll be able to argue. He'll be able to argue less than meets the eye with either Houston or Angel City. And so I need to do the true thing, which is say that the bounces will probably come for Angel City, who have been unlucky, who have a young core that I don't think it will take a ton of pieces to add to make a significantly more interesting team. And look, they're frustrating. They might not be a playoff team this year. It seems like they have a Soph Wilson-sized hole in their payroll that they're looking to fill.
Does it spell Sam Kerr?
Yeah,
No.
I mean, it could. I mean, like, I don't think it's going to be Sam Kerr, but Sam Kerr would probably be the wrong piece for this team too. You would want a more mobile striker, and yeah, I think it really just comes down to what they're the 12th luckiest team in this league, or yeah, they're the 4th unluckiest team in this league, and it's close.
Mm-hmm.
It's not crazy unlucky, but I think you can make an argument that, like, the sum total of all of their pieces, a handful of injuries, still figuring out what they are, means that the bounces will end up coming. Giselle seems like a legit revelation at this point. I'm still high on Kennedy Fuller. I think Svandis is spectacular. I think now that they have, like, Claire Emsley back and Junendo able to offer minutes, they actually have, like, a fair amount of depth. I think this is a second half team that will be better, despite the fact they are frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. It's very funny I started this whole thing with Alex Strauss in the post-match presser. I've never heard a coach, kind of in any league maybe, I'm sure there will be some Rosso fans who will push back on this, but like, I have not really encountered a lot of coaches who are very clear-eyed about what they think their team was able to control and what they weren't able to control. And when Angel City wins and doesn't play well, Strauss is very blunt about that. And when they lose while playing well, he's very blunt about that too. And I think in the aggregate, there have been quite a few results that should have gone their way. And but in both directions, wins that should have been losses, losses that should have been wins. And they've just basically gotten over the line of, because they've oscillated all year of being like a pretty lucky team, a pretty unlucky team. And like the curve of their results, the distribution of their results has been interesting because they had a 3-game winning streak and then they had a 5-game win-less streak, and none of it's clustered. But it's a young team. They've only got 23 players rostered right now, which is the minimum. Like, they're still a very young squad, and we're seeing the effects that Sveindes Jonsdottir's absence in the attack is having on their offensive production. It's a big step down to go from Sveindes Jonsdottir to Riley Tiernan. And like, as interesting as like some of their rookies are, they're soaking up a lot of minutes that they probably shouldn't be, if this team is expecting to contend for trophies, as Mark Parsons has said they should this year. And I think they'll be perfectly fine, but that doesn't mean they're going to make the playoffs. So like, are they? Yeah, they're. I'm with Eric. Like, they're not this bad, but there's a lot of work that they're going to have to do, whether it's in the summer or in the winter, to get themselves right, because they're starting to slip behind Parsons' self-professed timeline about when this team's going to raise a trophy.
Angel City's a confusing one to me. I want to know why Emily Sams is not a standout there. What do we think about that? Because I loved her on Orlando.
Me too.
Well, define standout. Like, what do you look for in a center back to really like blow your mind?
Well, that's a good question. I think it depends on the team's system. I mean, canonical center back, like excellent 1v1 defending, really good distribution. I just don't think that I really notice she's on the field a lot of times, unless she's pushing forward in the attack, which I don't really expect out of a center back.
By the way, I think she's like a classic disappears center back, because she's like the ultimate quiet positional center back. And paired with Sarah Gordon, who is like the loudest defender, who is like chasing people down, throwing shoulders, and like, you know, I think Emily Sams is like your ultimate quiet center back. So I also forget she's on the field all the time, but I also don't ever think, wow, Emily Sams made that mistake that cost a goal.
That's true. That's
like,
a good point.
That's literally never a thought I have.
I never thought of it like that.
Sarah, you've watched Emily Sams. What do you think about Emily Sams?
It's funny. I was having similar feelings watching Angel City, or just considering Emily Sams this year. So I was kind of perplexed as well, but that feels like an answer I hadn't considered and seems pretty accurate, especially considering that, like, you think about Angel City right now and you think about what a freaking season Sarah Gordon is having. Of course, we're going to be talking about her.
Is she the fastest player in the league? Like, her top speed? I wish we had that data.
Probably relative to age and position, I would say yes, because she's 34 and a center back. These are not players who should be fast or have explosive acceleration.
When she hunted Soph Wilson down, I was like, damn.
Yeah, go get it.
She made a play in like the 80-something minute last night. I'm like, you have a lot in the tank right now. That is amazing.
Yeah, she's got the juice. I mean, I think like the other thing that Angel City can probably lean on is like Hinasugi to Torni. That completely recalibrated like what they were expecting their midfield to be able to accomplish, both offensively and defensively. They're not going to get her back in the second half, so what do? You know, this constant cycle between like Karina Leger and Neely Martin and Ari Borges, and how much do you want Ari Borges to be pushing forward and having Myra drop deeper when like both of those players' natural strengths are the inverse. But this is Strauss's thing. He always wants the team to be front-footed. He always wants them to be running up the gut, which is why like Sarah Gordon needs to do so much highlight reel-worthy mop-up work that, I think they are perfectly mid at best. You know, they're like 9th place on adjusted peripherals. They're what, like 11th on points per game? Yeah, like whatever.
It's about fine. It's a mild bounces will come. It's like a
very forgettable team, unfortunately. And
Angel City, I feel like they've always had a weak bench. They feel like in their entire existence, I can't point to a season where I feel like they've had enough coming off of the bench.
Because they've been such a top-heavy recruitment philosophy.
And
because idiots were running the front office and owning the team.
Their payroll was pressed. It was like...
And that's not the situation anymore, but I think like we're in that transition period of, okay, the groundwork has been laid. Your GM and your coach are in place. Your youth of the future has been signed up. What's it going to take for you to push and go grab Soph Wilson in the wintertime, which they want to do. They very clearly want to do, and like are clearing money off the books to try and make, if not her, some move like that happen.
I hope that doesn't happen. I can't root against Sophia Wilson. but I will if she's available.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
But I mean, they have the number 3 average attendance in the league, attendance that like 8 or 9 teams would kill for, and it just feels, when you're in the stadium, it just feels like whatever. It's like, it's the worst thing that Angel City can be, honestly, is kind of be forgettable, and that's sort of what they are.
Yeah, that stadium will be sold out again if Soph shows up like the next day, because LA loves a star, and like they just. LA sports fans love a star. LA loves a star. There's no question. Evan, you are on to the last, less than meets the eye, an appropriate final category for the 16th team selected. And you have the Houston Dash.
Yeah. Ironically, not a very good team by record, quite a bad team by peripherals. And the only reason that they fit this category is that somehow they're still on the edges of the playoff hunt, but they've been awful. Like, they've been genuinely awful, and I don't feel like watching them disproves that. I see a glint in Sarah's eye that she might want to push back. What the fuck are they going to do? Like, they've got an owner who wants out, who doesn't want to spend money. They went out and signed 4 rookies in the offseason who don't deserve to be like dragged around, for 2,000 minutes the way that like they're going to have to be dragged around because there's nobody else to play the positions. Of course, that's what's going to happen. Like, they're bad offensively, they're bad defensively, and I don't think those early results at the beginning of the season are going to be able to carry them through, no matter how much flash of like quality from Kat Rader or Kate Fosse we see. And Avery Patterson can't do this on her own. It's a real bummer.
That's what I was going to say. Their attacking game plan is Avery Patterson gets the ball, goes out wide, gets like pummeled, and then somehow makes it out of the group and plays a ball in. And that's it. It's every play.
Yeah, and like Kiki Van Zanten latched onto a lot of those chances in the early part of the year and like racked up some XG as a result. But then that came back to earth, and they haven't scored and they haven't won games, and it's been brutal. I mean, this is a real fourth screen team for me. I really don't like watching Houston at all.
Fourth screen is hilarious.
And I don't like saying that. By the way, I want to be clear. I don't like saying that because I like a lot of the players. I like the head coach and the coaching staff, and I like the GM and the front office. Below ownership, there's a lot to like about this group. It's just that this isn't their year, Maybe another year of seasoning and next year is a different story, but like this team needs to sell, and they need to actually like get an owner who wants to actually invest, because there's been like 4 or 5 owners in Houston Dash's history, and none of them have actually spent the bread to make them feel like they actually play in the number 4 media market in the country.
Yeah, that's so true. It breaks my heart, but it's also true. And I think Houston make me sad. I hope for them to be how Utah are this year. I hope for Houston to be next year.
Yeah, and that should be the path, right?
It should be. And I think that I will admit, I rode the wave early on. I was like,
we all did.
They beat San Diego, then they beat Boston. They had that crazy shootout with Racing Louisville, and I was pretty high on Houston. And there was a little voice in my head that was like, maybe these results aren't indicating how good they are. But listen, to be honest with you, I think this roster is outstanding. I think that the loss of Mackenzie Roby hurts this team more than maybe some people are willing to admit. And I think that maybe people are hearing that, and that may be like a wild thing to say because it's Mackenzie Roby and not like, oh, they're missing Sophia Wilson. So of course, but this team had a high press that was, in my opinion, like the Utah Royals high press, where it did affect games in a big way. And Mackenzie Roby, now we know that since she's out, she was the one who was starting that whole thing, and their press has all but fallen apart since she has gotten hurt and gotten placed on SEI. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm disappointed because you look around the team and there's so many players here to love. Obviously, Avery Patterson, Kat Rader, we talked about. I thought Maggie Graham had been having a great season. Kate Fosse's been fantastic. I think Daly Colaprico is amazing. I mean, there's so much to love, and also they are. This is the category for them, unfortunately.
I will give you this: Mackenzie Roby would have offered at least some measure of veteran presence in the attacking core that doesn't really exist when it's Patterson, if you want to counter as an attacker, but also Kiki Van Zanten, Kat Rader, Kate Fosse. Like, these are kids.
It's Jane Campbell and the kids.
It's Jane Campbell and the kids. You need energy to press well, but you also need someone who like has been around the block on like how to handle a very physical league when you want to press from the front. And Roby, at the very least, could have offered a steady hand at the tiller to make it not look as rough as it has often looked, especially in recent weeks.
It's disconnected without her for sure. I will say the rookies have been the bright spot. I think that Houston Dash signed incredibly well out of college, and every single one of these rookies basically is, for me, just playing like Leah Klinke. She's not going to get a lot of love because she plays defense, but she's slotted in the center back role, she's slotted in left back and right back, and she's been locked down in every single role. Obviously, we're going to talk about players like Kat Rader or Kate Fossey because they play more attacking oriented, and that's just who gets the spotlight. But I mean, even Linda Olmark in the midfield, she's been great too. I think that they've signed well, so the future's bright.
Well, and big shout out to Michael Poma, Chloe Dillon, and the rest of the team working in data and analytics in recruitment under Angela Hucles-Mangano, because those are the people who are identifying and bringing those players in. You like what their process is. I think the Houston Dash are a really good team in 2028, or 2027 if they're like a little ahead of schedule. That's just like, it's just not going to be it for 2026. Doc, you wanted to say something. Sorry.
I'm not really that high on Houston, to be honest. I don't know that they're going to be great in 28.
That's so fair.
I can buy into the optimism, but also the
variance of youth.
Yeah, it's having these players develop on a team like Houston might hinder their development.
You would hope that the overhaul of the
real sad.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that too much? I'm sorry. I know.
No, I'm sad because it's true.
This is a classic.
You would hope that the overhaul of the coaching and the strength and conditioning staffs for the women's side, which now gets to be the women's side, not just like this vestigial organ for the Houston Dynamo, that there would be a better approach and a better philosophy and better results on the development front for young players. But we're not going to know the results of that for a couple of years. And also, none of it matters if Ted Siegel or the new owner doesn't actually want to put the money that those departments need into those departments. So it could go south. I mean, that's the thing. The variance of youth means this could be a top 4 team in 2028. It also could mean they're 12th like they always are.
Yeah, Doc, I actually think your point's it's a classic both things can be true, which is to say they may have nailed all of their college signings, and it may be the wrong environment for all of their college signings to flourish. And maybe that's even the likeliest of outcomes here. That said, I actually think, Fabrice, we just have to remember how utterly chaotic this team was 2 seasons ago.
Great point.
And that last year was just purely about stabilizing and acting like a professional franchise. And there are things that this team, particularly in this sort of the good run of games they had early on, demonstrated that there is actually a plan of action here. And I just think they don't have the talent to overcome their set of circumstances just yet. But they are more talented than they were last year. And maybe they will backslide on that. But it's unlike the Chicago Red Stars, there is a forward trajectory and a plan and competent people in place that are taking a franchise that is truly coming from the rockest of bottoms, heading in what I assume is at least a plausible direction toward victory. And you just can't say that about Chicago in the same way.
I agree.
But as it will bear out, as it always does, there has to be money and trust from whoever buys the team. Otherwise, it doesn't matter how good the infrastructure is. If, a new owner wants to strap slap charges to all the load-bearing pillars, the building's going to come down. There have been a lot of new dawns in Houston over the last decade. None of them have actually brought with it warm sunshine and tropical climates. Boy, I'm really losing the metaphor here.
The 6 times the charm or something, right?
Yeah, kind of. So, yeah, but more potential maybe than there has ever been, but that potential still needs to be realized. Okay, guys, who do we think won this draft?
Let's rank 1 through 4 who nailed the legit contender. We'll do points for each category. So for legit contender, Evan with the first overall pick, Washington Spirit. I think we all agree that is actually the most legit contender. We didn't have much to say about them because they're good, right? Does anybody want to argue somebody picked a better team there?
No.
Who were the other ones? It was Gotham, Kansas City,
Utah.
It was Gotham,
Utah.
San Diego.
Oh, Gotham, San Diego. Yeah, I'm okay with Washington. I think Evan wins.
Yeah.
So
I think Evan's got that round.
Less than meets the eye.
The answers were the Portland Thorns, Bay FC, Kansas City, and the Houston Dash.
My vote is for the Portland Thorns.
Me too. Can I vote for myself?
Yeah, you can.
You absolutely can. What do you think? What do you think, Sarah?
Yeah, I think it's Portland.
Feel good about that? All right.
Yeah.
Doc wins that one. Bounces will come. We've got Boston, Angel City, North Carolina, and Denver. I actually don't know, even relative to my own pick, like which way I'd go with that. I lean Boston.
My own horn.
Was that?
I think Denver. I still think Denver.
Is everybody just going to back their own pick?
I want to back North Carolina.
I'm going to back North Carolina here.
Okay.
So I think Doc gets
with
this
that.
one.
Because I think,
because like that team is, people are not taking seriously enough how good that team is.
I agree. And I actually, that was me in the beginning of the season with the power rankings. Like, I had them low, and I got skewered. Yeah. And thank you. And here I am. So, are you listening?
It's the EJ of it all.
Are you listening, Reddit? Are you listening?
Are you listening, Reddit? I had this. I had them preseason, I think, ranked 5th or 6th, and I think I might have been a hair low on them. And I was like on the higher end for a lot of people. I had them 5th, and I still think I might be low. So I'm with you there.
Does anybody not want to give Eric the point for we are who they thought they were for picking Chicago? Anybody want to push back on that?
I think Sarah had the best pick in this round. Highest value for having to pick 4th overall. I think picking Racing Louisville as who we thought they were last is actually the most impressive get of this draft.
I think Chicago's the pick for this one, honestly.
Yeah, obviously.
But somehow they're not in last place. Like, does that blow anyone else's mind?
Like, I kind of think this is where Sarah wins, which is like Sarah wins because she picked the worst team in the league, who we thought they were, and it is the worst set of outcomes.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. I
Racing have a game in hand over Chicago. You never know.
Also, what do you mean by worst set of outcomes? Chicago is like breaking the scale for like how bad their peripherals are.
And yet they have 3 wins. Somehow.
Yeah, we know how stupid this sport is.
You know what?
Correct.
Actually, I think it's Chicago, but I'll go with either one.
I'm back in Chicago for this. Sorry to give you a point, Eric.
I just feel like it was like the most obvious choice available. No question.
All right, well, Doc, you're the tiebreaker. Where do you land?
Chicago.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
And that leaves Doc as a 2-category winner here.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
By the way, with your classic teams, the North Carolina Courage and the Portland Thorns, you went to the well with your faves.
Yeah, we're overjoyed that you guys got to join us for this very first Are They Real draft in XOG history. Congrats to Doc for her big win. And we will get back to you in some form or another for covering the U.S. Women's National Team friendlies in Brazil and maybe a little bit of Patreon content before we go on some form of hiatus for the World Cup break that we haven't quite drawn the contours around just yet. But you will be apprised of all of our movements in the coming weeks. But in the meantime, if you haven't done so already, please rate us, review us, follow us wherever you get podcasts, drop us a kind review and rate us 5 stars, to be clear. Follow us on social media at XOwnGoals. That's the letter XOwnGoals on all platforms. Keep an eye open for some very cool exclusive video content on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. If you feel like we've made an own goal, please email us at xog@xowngoals.com. That's the letter XOG at the letter XOwnGoals.com. If you believe that Doc or Sarah have made an own goal, do not send that email. Go away. I will not tolerate it. You can shit on me and Eric all you want, but they are beyond reproach. And what else to say? Thanks so much for listening as always. Subscribe to Patreon if you haven't done so. $6 a month gets you 4 bonus episodes every single month, plus Discord access, plus discounts on merch, and a whole lot more. And we will talk to you very, very soon.
Listen to Sarah's show. Read Arianna's columns. Be nice.
Be nice, mongrels. Bye.